the pop culture field and your world.
I guess I can start us off if you want.
Yeah, man, do it.
Okay.
I'm ready. Don't think I'm not ready.
I'm
not
ready. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Well, are you ready? PCFM Army, welcome to another episode of the Pop Culture Field Manual podcast, sitting right at that intersection of weapons, action, the military, and pop culture. We have a very accurate and fun-filled episode in store for you folks. And if you've worked a job where there was a movie or a TV show that was featured in this piece of cinema or pop culture, I guarantee you that you would find something that was misleading, inaccurate, or possibly spot on about it. And there is no shortage of military movies or TV that feature our service members deployed overseas, but how much of what is portrayed is actually accurate? And that is exactly what we're going to talk about today. And based on our own experiences, Israel and I's experiences overseas, we're going to discuss some great and not so great portrayals of deployment. Yes.
Yes, that is what is going to happen. This is one of those, this is kind of like a classic question, I think, that you and I have gotten
What's
in the past. Yeah, what's deployment like? Yeah, what's it like in your deployment? What was the best? What was the worst? What was the scariest? What was the, whatever. And then of course for if you don't know, when movies are released, if you don't know, now you know.
Sorry.
Person.
Great opportunity there.
But
no, not you, Siri.
The more, and I'm sure we're going to see more movies come out as now that kind of our major involvement in our major involvements around the world have kind of wound down, even though we're always everywhere, I feel like.
Sure.
But like, is it real? Like, is that what it's like? You know
Sure.
what I mean?
I think it's a great question, but I think it's worth noting that a lot of these pieces of pop culture, great representations of combat. We have Saving Private Ryan, we have Black Hawk Down, et cetera, et cetera.
All Quiet on the Western Front recently.
Yeah. Like all these movies that are portraying like harsh and accurate combat are typically involving one event. Or Hamburger Hill was like one of the most violent movies I've ever seen that portray, military army in Vietnam or Marines in Vietnam. And that was one event.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people that deployed to Vietnam that didn't see anything.
Right.
And there's some people that deployed and got to see it all.
Yeah.
So when I feel like civilians go to the movies and watch these movies portrayed about, very, very specific events in a very, very large conflict. Sometimes they get the wrong message because, I've been quote unquote deployed. And I got to spend a little bit of time in Iraq, and Iraq was like a vacation to me. And I know I barely talk about it because I spent like 2 weeks there. And to me, that doesn't count.
Yeah.
That doesn't count at all, because we were literally staying in Erbil, and Erbil is its own city.
Yeah, man.
The military base is so big that you get, I heard the little rocket alarm go off, but that's if there's a rocket landing, maybe 2 miles away, they still play it. And it's like they have Burger Kings, they have shopping malls, they have bazaars, they have all this stuff. They have bars on the base. You're so safe. It's like vacation. It's like going to Kuwait.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, they hear the word deployment and then they think oh, you are in the shit, which sometimes you are and sometimes you're not. And it really depends on where you're going and who you're going with.
Yeah, especially with something like Iraq and Afghanistan, especially Afghanistan, because we were there for 20 plus years, or about 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I was deployed to Afghanistan. I was deployed to Afghanistan in 2001 versus 2017. And I was with this unit versus that unit. I was out there with special forces, or I was on the base with mechanics or truck drivers, I was a private contractor, all those kinds of things. All that stuff factors into your what kind of deployment you're going to have. And then also we can talk about this. You and I have both had chill deployments
Yeah.
I'll go to Korea for a couple of weeks for an
It's almost
army
weird
internal
calling
career
them
fair. Like,
deployments.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, yeah,
Yeah, it says
yeah,
on you pull out your military document, it says deployment, and it says, like, Korea 4 months.
yeah.
But, like, personally, and I think this is just a mental bias that was, like, programmed in my mind, where it was like, especially for an infantryman, it's like, you are not deployed unless you are in a combat zone. That
Right,
is the military bias. And when you
right.
call, like, in 2016, was it 2016, 2016? I think it was 2016. 2016, got the call you're going to South Korea, for a quote unquote deployment. I was like,
Yeah,
this isn't a deployment.
yeah.
Like, we started making up words and names for it because it's not a deployment, it's an overseas training rotation, but it happened to be the same duration of a deployment. And I was like, okay, well, what do you call this? So, when people ask me how many times I deployed, I say only once, because I went to combat zone. I went to a combat zone one time, but I went to Korea, I went to Germany, I went to all these
Right.
different countries. I just didn't count it, you
Yeah.
know?
That was something,
Yeah.
I don't know. You tell me if this was a conversation that you heard or something that the leadership was trying to curve, but there was a problem, I think, maybe coming into the time when I was in the military, but they called it military tourism, where you would do something like, oh, we got to deploy, we got to go to Cambodia for 6 weeks to do some
Yeah.
training stuff. When 50% of the time you're not doing anything. You're out at the bars, you're hanging out,
Yeah. That was
you're doing
Korea.
your thing. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And the brass is like, no, we're not going to, that's fraud, waste, and abuse. We don't want to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So
military tourism. Yeah,
yeah.
no, I never heard that term. But it is 100% true. It's like you have to justify it. I mean, literally what we did in Korea, and then I spent like a month in Germany, and like what we did in these countries, we could have easily did back at base, just like we did during our training cycles. Yeah, I think they just, I started seeing the war slowly coming to an end. And
Hmm.
I got so lucky. And I say lucky, some people are like, "Oh, you're calling it lucky." I got so lucky to catch the ass end of the GWAT, to like get a little action, right?
Yes.
Not the
Yeah.
action that I wanted, not the action I saw on the movies, not the shit that I wanted to be in, that I
Yeah.
prepared myself for.
Yeah.
But I still, looking back on it, and I tell these stories, and I'm like, "Oh, I didn't get to do what I wanted to do, but I got to do, got to saw arms off, and I got to shoot mortars at people, and that's cool." And telling a normal person that was like, whoa. But hearing me hearing that, I'm like, what a bitch.
You want to do your job on a basic
Yeah.
level. For those that, yeah, anybody out there thinking that Cameron's like a psychopath, we train Rangers and Special Forces. We train to do a certain kind of job, and you want to do your job, man. You want to do what
Yeah.
you train to do, what you get pumped up to do, and what you
Yeah.
you and your buddies, you become this molded, this formation, and this you get the synergy, right? You're with your buddies, you're
Yeah.
training, and you want to do that for real.
Yeah,
You
no, I
know,
put myself, what's the point of putting
yeah.
yourself through literal hell? Like going through selections, putting yourself through the torment that is being a private in the 75th Ranger Regiment, to not be able to get to and do what they're telling you you're going to do. That to me that's psychopath. That will breed a psychopath.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like basically putting a pit bull in a cage and just poking it with a stick and telling it you're going to let it out, and then
yeah,
you never let it out.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but uh, but yeah, no, it's I'm very fortunate to catch the ass end, because nowadays you typically don't. There's not a lot of guys left with a lot of experience. I'm starting to see it dwindling, and
Yeah.
you saw it dwindling. Like, I was so lucky to, to me, in the Ranger Regiment, when you see like a seasoned guy, they have deployment, they have a deployment, and they have their combat action badge, and that's like everybody had that. And if you didn't have that, it was kind of like you were an outlier. And I
Mm,
was so lucky to get that. Like, people
mm,
were going on deployment and coming back without a combat action badge, and that literally just means you were engaged in combat and you fired back, or you were fired at. Like, there's criteria to
yeah.
get that. So people, even if you know you go overseas and a mortar lands way far away from you, you're not going to get that. Some people get it if it's a little closer. I got it from just shooting mortars at the enemy. Like, that wasn't, to me, it wasn't like being in a full-fledged firefight, but that's the reason I got mine. But like
Yep.
coming back with that was just such a relief because I feel like I was complete, you know? Like
Yeah.
I have completed the circle. I have found all the 5 pieces of Exodia and I am like powerful. But nowadays, there's rangers that don't have that. And it's, I feel really bad because that's what they probably want that.
Yeah.
They like, they want that so bad. Because that's what all the leaders have in it. That's what all the older guys have. So they
Yeah.
want that. And then not to mention, like, when I'm on Instagram and sometimes on my explore page pops up like the recent graduation classes of the new drill sergeants, that are going to be taking over the basic training and training the next generation of warfighters. And, I would argue 80% of these people don't even have a deployment.
Mm-hmm.
80% of them don't have actual operational experience.
Yeah,
And it's like there's
that's an interesting conversation to have right now, especially because it's a weird kind of thing. Because you want to have leadership that have those experiences.
yeah.
And yet at the same time, what does that say? It's like, well, we got to have a war in order for those
Yeah.
experiences to be available to be had. And we're coming into a time right now where it's nobody, nobody
It's
wants.
peacetime.
It's peacetime, yeah. And I was going to say
Yeah.
nobody wants to have like a massive war going on. Like I'm sure the Ukrainians and the Russians are not having a good time with all
Yeah,
this
no.
stuff. But for America specifically, it's like working out. You have to keep working out in order to stay fit.
Yeah.
And how are we going to keep America's army, America's military fit and ready? Because it's gonna happen again, right?
It
War
will.
is inevitable. It's the one thing that we have had throughout entire human history since
Yeah.
Cain killed
We've been
Abel. We've been
fighting.
fighting each other. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's gonna happen again. Obviously, well, yeah. How are we going to get ready, man? Because we got to stay ready. Because if we get complacent, man, I'm telling you, as hard as it would be once a war starts with a ready force, it's going to be that much harder if a war starts with an unready force. And we're going to be caught off guard, and then more soldiers are going to die, and
Yeah.
as a result, because we're not ready for it. And so it's really interesting. You talk about the drill sergeants and we know that there's principles, right? We know that there's military principles that we can still train and still keep sharp,
Yeah.
but it's just going to be different because there's not going to be like, listen, you guys, you got to pay attention to your training because in 6 months you're going to be in Iraq. In 6 months you're going to be in
Yeah.
Afghanistan. You
Yeah.
know,
I know. I just, I compare it to my experiences. Just like when I went through, in the ACU days, just like you did. No, you were the Woodland days,
I
right?
mean, Woodland transitioning into ACUs. I was the
Yeah.
last Woodland. Did we have eight? No, we did. We got Woodland in basic training. Yep. And I was
Yeah.
the
'Cause I
last
remember.
class to get issued black boots that you had to clean and shine
Yeah.
every day.
That's crazy, man. That's that's great. Old man. But no, I remember like, on the day having daily conversations, or I'm sorry, not conversations. I would say more dialogue with my drill sergeants who were all combat experienced infantrymen.
Mm,
Like not a single one of them didn't have a deployment. Like every single one deployed, every single one had a CIB. So they were training you for what to expect because of their experiences. So now I don't know how it's going to work with the new generation and not getting that, but that's a conversation for a little different episode because we're here to
yeah, I
talk about
suppose so.
deployments,
Actual deployments. Yeah, there you go.
actual deployments. But you know, I feel like everyone, especially in the movies, I haven't seen, maybe a lot of these deployments have these guys roughing it.
Hmm.
And you know what? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
When you talk about like just the most recent one that you and I have seen, because we did our Patreon live stream a couple of months ago with this one, but the Outpost, right?
Yeah.
That was like, that's roughing it to me. Not only is that roughing it in terms of accommodations, your circumstances, but the fact that they were in such a strategically stupid position to be in, and the
Yeah.
kind of stress that would put on somebody.
Sure,
That
you're
that
just
was never my experience when I was on deployment to
yeah.
Iraq.
Yeah, no, in my experience, I would say the level of roughing it as they did was what we were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like as far as the strategic positioning, I mean, we were pretty damn close to the Flot. Like I could literally see uh the ISIS headquarters from our building. Like we
Ah.
um so that was really interesting because we'd sit on the rooftop and like, the enemy's right there. They're less than like a K away. And like you would hear gunfire, you would see the bombs being dropped. You would like literally, if you had a sniper scope, or any type of glass, there was a soccer stadium in the distance, like a huge stadium that you could see. And you would look, how usually stadiums have like ginormous flags. And
Yeah.
they had this like 80 by 50-foot ISIS flag. And you could see it through your scope. Actually, really cool story about that too. Was At the end of our deployment there, like we were getting ready to move over to, I think it was Hasaka, which was on the other side of the country by Adifa Dam. And we were right outside of Raqqa. And one day, like we cleared ISIS out. Like we did it. It was like there was celebration in the streets. I remember we thought we were about to get invaded by the Mongolian horde because like one day we were all sitting, and I forgot what movie we were watching, but we were all like sitting there watching this movie, and we just hear like a barrage of gunfire, like like a shocking amount from this deployment. So everyone, classic. We run up. I'm in ranger panties and a tank top with a plate carrier and a helmet on, and all I remember is our rooftop had like we had two Mark 19s, we had two 50 cals, we had all of our 240s, we had law rockets like lined up against just to be ready. We had like 3 buckets full of frag grenades, just like at each point, like each corner. Like we had every single gun like up there. So we all run up to the rooftop, and I get on a 50 cal and I like basically set it up, and we have all the fancy 50 cal. So I had like an EOTech mounted on it. It had slack rounds, which are rounds that literally explode when they hit. And like we see this like convoy coming down this main MSR, which is like a couple 100 meters away from our rooftop. And an MSR, for those of you that aren't military acronym savvy, is the main supply route. And like it's pretty much just like a pretty notable road. And
Mhm.
pretty much we just see like this convoy vehicles with guys in the back, like with all AKs and everything. And they're too far to like confirm, but like we were about to unleash. Like that was it. That was the moment where we're all like, this is we're gonna write books about this. If we were Navy SEAL, we'd be like, if we were Navy SEALs, this is what we're gonna write books about. And like I remember I'm just like tracking this vehicle with my 50 cal, and like my safety's off and my thumbs are on the little paddles, and I'm like, here we go. This is what you wanted, Cam. You're about to get it. You're about to get it. And then all of a sudden, like because they're firing, they're fucking shooting.
Yeah.
And we had a guy run up and he's like, no, don't hit them. Those are our guys. They're just celebrating because they defeated ISIS. And we're like, oh my God. Like,
Dude.
dude.
Those guys will never know how close they
Yeah,
came
how
to
close they came
oblivion.
to death. Absolute death. We're talking hundreds of guys. But so we had that happen. And so they're celebrating. And, the next couple of days, they're like basically kind of scrubbing the city. And they had this van pull up beside our compound. And like we could look down and like see the street. And like this van pull and started like pushing out potato sacks kind of looking thing, like burlap sacks. And then they throw out this giant one. And we're like, what the heck is that? We're all like looking down and seeing what it is. And he opens it and starts pulling out this like black curtain, like huge black curtain.
Ah.
And all of a sudden he like pulls out a big piece of it, opens it, and it's the flag that they've been flying at this soccer stadium. That ginormous ISIS flag, their HQ flag. He
Yeah.
just pulls it out. And I see it, and my squad leader sees it, and we look at each other and we're like, that's ours. So we literally we we're sprinting down the stairs like flip flops, fucking, and we just sprint outside. I grab my Glock because like we're trying to get this flag, and we're going outside the gate
Yeah.
to get this thing. Uh, Somehow we negotiated it from him, and we traded him
Wow.
some stuff, and like now that ISIS flag is hanging above my platoon's like cage in Washington. So
That's
that
awesome.
was super cool. But like, I mean, but moments like that, you know, you're talking about them, and like that, those are cool moments.
Yeah.
Except for you know, but I wanted the combat, but now I'm perfectly okay with
Yeah.
like that deployment.
Yeah.
But
Well, then that seems a lot like, I feel like everybody can relate to Jarhead. Like you've seen
yeah,
Jarhead, right?
of course, I think it's one of the
Feeling
most accurate military deployment movies ever.
it is. It's the feeling of training up to do something and almost, but not quite ever getting a chance to do it. And like
Yeah,
also like the boredom that can set in when you are out on a deployment. And, we've all experienced it to some extent, those of us that have been deployed, of like just hanging out. I was lucky because I had very nice accommodations up in Mosul. I had my own room. We had our own internet. We had a gym right down the hallway. And when we weren't doing operations, we were just working out and eating. And then I was
yeah,
like watching DVDs on my my little janky laptop. And that's it,
yeah,
man. Reading books, chilling out. There was no schedule unless you had to pull radio duty. We had a rotating schedule for
yeah.
that.
For the jock, yeah, the
Yeah.
jock RTO or something like
Exactly.
that.
Yeah. So that was it. You go down to the little our headquarters. We had a compound within the Mosul base, so we had our
Yeah,
own compound within a compound, which was awesome. Um, you go over we had a table right in the entrance of the hallway to our headquarters that had everything that people would send to us. So you'd go and check out a couple letters from some elementary school kids in Iowa.
yeah,
You could get some Girl
yeah,
Scout cookies. You could get some candy. They sent care packages. If you needed an extra toothbrush and a bar of soap, you could go down, and
yeah,
I'm telling you, we get that stuff when you're over there. So if you ever
yeah.
send
You
anything
do.
overseas, we all get that stuff. So
Yeah,
so yeah, that was what it was like when we weren't doing anything. But I can't imagine being in like a regular infantry line unit or some other job where your job is dependent upon maybe somebody else making a decision and you
yeah,
can't move until they move. A lot of times in SF, we would be putting our own stuff together. We had our own intel resources, we had our own people feeding us stuff, and then we could put together packages ourselves, and then there'd be the odd job to do. Like I got to do a quick roundabout in a Black Hawk, just me and the pilots and the gunner, but I had to go and give the new crypto to everybody when we're doing a switch over.
yeah,
I had to
yeah,
go, and their echo would meet me on the pad, and I'd
yeah,
hook up to their guy. We'd transfer the crypto, and I'd leave. So that was like all
yeah,
night. That was like a couple hours. I'd fly to everywhere. So that was kind of fun and cool, and just
yeah.
looking out at the night sky. So I can't say that there were many parts where I was like bored, but there
You're
is
always
that
busy.
feeling.
Yeah,
You're always doing, yeah, right. And of course, if you're in a good unit, there's always something to do. There's training to do.
yeah,
Especially we'd go out to the range and stuff. But when it comes to the jarhead type of boredom, I felt that right in like the middle of my deployment, because we were out in Iraq for 9 months,
yeah,
and right around June, July, August, you'd feel it. It's like you're settled in, but you're not leaving. You're not getting ready to leave yet, because everything takes time to settle in and then to get ready to leave. All takes time.
yeah,
So there's this energy that you feel when you're coming into the country, and then when you're getting ready to leave. That's like, all right, we're getting ready to get out of here. But there's that middle period where if you're not doing something, you like, I'll be honest, Cam, you've spoken about it, and so I feel the freedom to speak about my, like my desires. It's like I got a CIB too, man, but I was driving in the convoy when
yeah,
we got attacked, and so I never actually technically fired back. I never fired my weapon in a combat situation while I
yeah.
was in Iraq.
Mhm.
And something about that bothers me, man. I really
It
wanted to do the thing, man. You
yeah,
know, because I did it
yeah.
so much in training, and it's like I just wish I would have just capped this like
Yeah,
one insurgent,
yeah, just yeah,
one
make the
Iranian
grass grow.
officer, something like that, yeah,
Yeah.
just to make the grass grow a little bit. So I appreciate that you talk about that,
No,
because
I
there's
think it's
no place better to do your job, to do that kind of job where it's permissible and morally right to do so, than in a combat
yeah.
deployment. And I missed out
No,
on it.
absolutely. No, you're not I feel like you're not alone, because there's a lot of guys I talk to that, have that same experience. Um, and like it's to me, it's I could say getting lucky, because there are like the amount of people that have actually gotten that, like, kick in a door and shoot people in the face experience,
Mhm.
that even in the Rangers is slim,
Yeah.
because only one person takes that shot,
Yeah.
even if you're on the ground with them, you'll get that CIB, but like only one person in that group of 36 guys actually took that shot. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
So like, it's there's a lot of guys that do just because Rangers were so busy, but like there's a lot of guys that don't. And I struggled with that coming home because, like, in my experience, like, even though I was shooting mortars, like, allegedly, quote unquote, like, allegedly I got, my mortars hit where they were supposed to. And like, because we had a Raven getting like live BDA, battle damage assessment feedback. So like, my mortars hit exactly where they were supposed to. And when I brought that up to my squad leader, he's like, I was pretty jazzed about it because I was like, oh, dude. But it was weird because, like, you don't see it, you're just
Yeah.
like, if someone presents you a button, a stranger comes up to you and has like one of those that was easy buttons, and
Yeah.
he's like, hey, press this button and somebody dies, and you just start smashing the button. Like, you don't know where,
Yeah.
it's just like, you don't know where. So like, I was pretty jazzed, but my squad leader was like, it doesn't fucking count unless you get to play with the dead body. And I'm like, well,
Aw.
you just ruined my day. But so like for me, it's like that experience, since I didn't get to see it with my own eyes, is kind of like I didn't do it. Um, but
Yeah.
it took a lot of a lot of counseling, a lot of therapy to get over that. Uh,
That's what you had to go to therapy for. I
yeah,
like it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not that I took another human life and I don't know
Yeah.
how to deal
No,
with it.
it was, I
Not
took a
saying,
life and I didn't get to fucking
saying,
see
yeah.
it.
Not to say
Yeah,
that people don't need it. Hey, if it's
yeah,
bothering you, you got to go see somebody. But
yeah. Go talk to people.
there are the rest of us that relish the opportunity. So.
Exactly. But yeah, man, I mean, experiences like that are what, made me who I am today. But yeah, just thinking about that deployment though, like comparing it to you said you had your own camp
Yeah.
in Mosul, right? Yeah, in
Yep.
Rangers and BAF, I'm pretty sure they have Camp Alpha, which is like fenced off from the rest too, and that's where they operate out of.
Yeah.
But like the differences between like special operation deployments and like conventional forces,
Yeah.
I think it's largely leadership dependent, I feel
Ooh.
like.
Oh man.
Oh man,
So much
how
so.
yeah, what those guys are allowed to do, how they're allowed to dress, how they're allowed to act, think,
Yeah.
feel is all leadership dependent. I don't know,
Yeah.
because I have a story for you for mine.
Go for it.
Um, like pretty much, I felt so. We were in Al Raqqa. We call it Firebase Raqqa, and it was essentially just a 3-story abandoned schoolhouse. It wasn't an actual base. It was just a school that we seized from ISIS, and like it was super small. Had like a tiny wall that surrounded it. It was like maybe 400 meters all the way around, and it was like a track. It was like literally a track from a football field, and essentially we had a bunch of forces with us, and about 2.5 months into that deployment, a platoon from 10th Mountain Division, a regular infantry platoon, just showed up out of nowhere. And like, we were the 75th Ranger Regiment was the lowest on the totem pole while we were there.
Really?
That's how many special units were here.
Golly.
Like, and we were tier 2, so everybody else was tier 1 except for an SF group.
Hmm.
So it was us, SF, Delta, like French Special Reconnaissance, which is their tier 1, and then a platoon of SAS guys. And like, we were the lowest on the totem pole, so like we pulled security for the place and kept that place running. And so out of nowhere, this group from 10th Mountain Division shows up, and we're like, who the fuck are you guys, man?
You didn't know they were coming?
No. One day they just showed up, and like we had full beards, like we were rocking around and in like ranger panties and tank tops and flip flops and shit. And like these guys showed up, and they was just a platoon, and they're first. I felt so bad for them because like we were pretty much all free, and we were doing everything, and like we had outside showers from the school, so you had to walk down the stairs, and then you had to go outside, and there was this mud hut that had a tank on top that was like not heated, and it just would run down, and you would have this hose that came into a shower head, And like if you showered in the middle of the day, you were good because it was hot. But at
Oh,
nighttime,
okay.
it was fucking cold, and there was no lights in there too, so you had to shower with a headlamp on.
Ah.
So like I would see these guys, poor bastards. They had to dress. They couldn't wear civilian clothes like the rest of us. They had to dress in army PT uniforms, and they weren't allowed to walk. And this was all from their first sergeant.
Do they have
One
PT
guy.
belts? Do they have to wear PT belts as well?
No, not
Okay.
that bad. But they weren't allowed to walk to the restrooms in flip-flops or shower shoes. They had to wear running shoes into the bathroom, change into their shower shoes, shower,
Oh
and then
my
when they
God.
wanted to walk back up, they had to put their feet instead. Like we would walk up in towels, just
Yeah.
yeah, there was a couple women, but they were, the women on deployment, they don't give a shit. Like,
Yeah.
so we'd walk up shirtless with like, towels on and flip flops. And these guys, poor bastards, had to like, change into full PTs again, wet, put running sneakers on and walk up to their room and then, change. And I'm like, dude,
Gee whiz.
just because one guy, is like, we got
Yeah.
to do this.
Yep. Yeah. Some officer has it into his head, whether it's a power trip or they have some old notion of what is proper. It just like it's not practical. It's not
Yeah.
circumstantially appropriate.
Yeah.
It's just no, we have to do it because I say we have to do it.
Yeah. That's why Generation Kill, the TV series from HBO,
Yeah.
brings me so much joy. Because, like, we talk about pieces of pop culture that are accurate to actual deployment life. And I
Yeah.
think Generation Kill is like spot on. Because you have that one sergeant major or gunny that literally just goes around and he has no job. He has no job whatsoever other than to reinforce grooming standards when there's a literal war happening around him. The one thing he's worried about is mustaches. Police that mustache. Grooming standards. That's all he worries about. And
Yeah.
that's it. Like there you reach a point of rank that like, we all make jokes about like once you become a sergeant major, like what is your job essentially?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just to keep people off your grass. And like to an extent there's truth in some humor.
Yeah.
Humor's there is an absolute truth in all this world. But yeah, that's to me it's 100% true because I remember like I was talking to one guy at SHOT Show actually. He was a former SEAL and they were talking about, they used to deploy to the Philippines and I think they got a platoon from the 82nd Airborne to come to support them. And like, SEALs are super relaxed. That
Yeah.
was one thing. Even the reserve SEALs, like I worked with the reserve guys in Korea and like looking at them, dude, like no discipline, and that's what they're known for. They could do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And like they'd wear whatever they want, they could look however they want. So like I was talking to this guy and he was like big guy, big fucking SEAL guy. And they're all full bearded, like literally Viking beard and jacked and wearing whatever. And this platoon shows up and like they're actively going out on missions in the Philippines and he's like, yeah, they were really good guys. And one day like they had their first sergeant like fly in and talk to us and he's like, hey, how are my guys doing with you guys? Are they and instead of like wondering like how operationally they're doing, like are they actually supporting the SEAL team the way they should be, the one question he asked is, are they shaving? He's like, are they maintaining their grooming standards? Not are they being an asset to your actual operation. He's like, are they shaving? And the guy's like, what the chief was like, what the fuck? So he goes out and he's like, he talks to the rest of the 82nd guys and he's like, they were like, how did it go? And he's like, well, you want to know what he asked? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, he asked if you guys were all shaving when you're supposed to. And he's like, I'll let you know right now, I don't give a fuck about that. He's like, you guys can grow beards, you guys can dress however you want as long as you're good and doing your job well. And I'll let you know when this cocksucker comes back. And I'll give you, like a day notification so you guys can shave and look right for him. And he's like, yeah. But like dudes like that,
Yeah.
That's
That's important too, man, to have those kinds of guys that understand the difference between what it takes to do the job and kind of at least in deployment, superfluous kind of disciplinary, but like in the rear battalion type stuff. I got to hand it to our sergeant major when I was there up in Mosul was he would cut it. He had it both ways. So if you were in the headquarters element, I was on the B team at the time.
Yeah.
You're in Mosul. It's a major base. We're sharing, we're going out and representing ourselves to other units. His rationale was, hey, we got to be clean shaven, got to be to standard. Like we could wear civilians out when we went to the chow hall, as long as we had a sidearm, we could be relaxed in that. But if you went to go do something official with another unit, like you had to get some paperwork done or whatever, you wear a uniform, you go and talk to them and all that kind of stuff. Now, if you were away from Mosul and you were out in one of our little satellite fobs, then you could do what you want. And if you came in, it was understood, like he's not going to get on you for having a beard and having it grown out or wearing relaxed uniforms. But if you go out on a mission, obviously, then there's a certain standard that he wanted you to adhere to. But he was pretty cool. The only thing I resented him for was that we weren't allowed to wear boonie caps. He's like, boonie caps are for Panama Canal. That's it. Like that.
Oh,
those boonie caps are for the jungle. And so it was because it gets hot, man. You want that 360-degree shade. We were never allowed to wear it. So in resentment, in defiance of him, I wore it after I got out of the military for a long time, and then I had to retire it because it was ACU. So,
oh man, I will tell you a story though, based on that, like trying to get away with something. When I was in Syria, I remember when we first got there, like all the SF guys, all the Delta guys, everybody had a beard, and like Rangers, the only people that like Rangers can grow beard, but it has to be a very special case. And actually, Ranger Regiment was one of the most disciplined units I've ever seen.
hey,
Like you will shave every day. You will be the standard. They're like, you are the standard. So you will maintain it. So like you shave on deployment, unless you're part of like Recce or you're going on an Omega deployment, which is like attached to CIA. Like you were not allowed to shave, or you were not allowed to grow a beard. So when we got there and everybody had beards and we were like super well shaven, I was like, well, I want a fucking beard. Like I'm not gonna be the only guy out here like looking like a regular army guy, no offense.
yeah,
So I remember it's like I formulated this whole plot to allow myself to grow a beard. And like I wanted one so bad because I've never grown one before, so I wanted to see if I could, and I wanted to blend in because like if we're working with these guys, we're working with the SDF, like we should look like one of them. We should look like the locals. So like it's like 5 days before the actual order came down. Like they wanted us shaving every day. Like our first sergeant and CO would drive down to our little fob, because they were staying at something called the LCMR, which was like this concrete factory, which later we found out was funding ISIS, but that's a different story. You can look that up. The concrete factory, French concrete factory in Syria, funds ISIS. But we were staying there. They were like letting us stay there. But we were at the fob, and like they'd come down and make sure we were shaving to standard. And I was just like, fuck this. I was like, we're out here. We should look like the locals. We should blend in. We shouldn't, show our ass. So
and this is just in your head. This is just
this
you
is in my
doing
head.
your
Yeah,
own math.
of course. I'm not telling that to my platoon sergeant. I really respect the guy. But I was always kind of known to kind of do like, I always walk to the beat of my own drum. Yeah, I went to the med station, and I'm like, hey, I'm not fucking shaving with this water because the water's gross. Like I'm like, dude, I'm not shaving with this water. It's gonna give me a skin infection, and the last thing I need out here is to be combat ineffective because there's holes in my fucking face because of the bacteria.
Yeah.
And they gave me a shaving profile. They're like, okay, you don't have to shave. And I just remember I walked in and I handed it to my squad leader because he was shaving and they were all shaving, and I handed it to my squad leader, and he just looked at me and he's like, fuck you. And I was like, dude, don't hate me because you ain't me. 2 days after that, they came down. They're like, you guys don't have to shave. And I was like, I went through all this trouble. I made enemies.
You don't think you broke the dam? Do you think you broke the dam? Do you think you got the leak?
No.
Oh, okay. They just did it anyway.
Yeah. Okay. I might. I don't know. They didn't tell me if I did, but
they wouldn't.
Yeah, no. I'll take that credit,
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were kind of like this guy, they were like, this guy. He's trying to grow beards, but yeah, we all got to grow beards, and then I looked Middle Eastern, so that was cool. But But yeah,
You
you
want
wanna
I
you
was
wanna
good. I just wanted to. I just wanted to. Full disclosure. I haven't seen War Machine with Brad Pitt, but I
Oh,
wanted to
I
talk
have.
about it. Just okay, good. Just a little bit because I know we give a lot of our officers a hard time, but
Yeah,
uh, especially when it came to Afghanistan, I can understand the idea of trying to get things done at a leadership level and just all of the politicking and the glad handing and all the just the I don't know, just the layers and layers of BS that you have to go through just to try to get something done, to get something
sure.
implemented that you know that tactically might be correct, but you are under civilian leadership. And so you
That
have
don't
to,
know.
yeah, that
Yeah,
don't know. And they don't understand. They have their own interests that they're
sure.
trying to fulfill. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of give a shout out to the officers and the higher ups and stuff because I know that a lot of them are aren't worth the uniforms they wear, but some of a lot of them are. They've been there and they know. And I think Stanley McChrystal, I think, is kind of who this was loosely based off of.
It was, yeah.
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 What
I
do you
mean,
think about that?
it's
Officers
hard.
and
Yeah,
missions.
it's super hard because the higher, like I think officers have the same kind of rep as like of enlisted once they reach that level.
Yeah.
It's like it gets to the point where you're like your word goes, but then like does it actually?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
like the only way to be really in charge is to be the president.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because he's the commander in chief.
Yeah.
And like there is so watching that movie, I mean, I think, Brad Pitt plays a really good example. Like McChrystal, all these giant leaders that we hear about, like Merrill and McChrystal and all these, legends, they're infamous. His routine, his, prowess, his military discipline, how he conducts himself. Like they are legends.
Mhm.
Like there is no legend is an earned title for these guys. But at the end of the day, they're still, directed by some political power that has no experience in war, that has no tactical perception or understanding. So like you can see the frustration in the movie, but like also a lot of officers that I've met with don't have a level of understanding from the enlisted side.
Mm-hmm. That's a
Because
big. I think that's the universal and timeless truth when it
yeah,
comes to military. Yeah.
yeah. I think some of the best officers I've worked with and the ones that, I enjoyed having as some of my leadership were prior enlisted guys because they
Yeah.
get it. They understand. Some of the officers that just straight up come out of RTC, haven't done any of the grunt work, haven't, had that life experience, just come by and snap their fingers and think it can get done. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, it doesn't work like that, sir.
Yeah.
So there's that one scene in War Machine when he comes out and he's talking to the Marines and he's like, he's trying to give him like the motivational speech. And he's like, you just gotta keep hitting it because you're serving your country. And, you're good. And one of the Marines was like, why are we here? And he's like, we're here because there's an enemy out there. And he's like, yeah, but what are we doing? Like, we're not even allowed to engage these guys. Like the ROE, it's like, we're not fighting the terrorists.
Right.
Why are we
Right.
here? And he's like, he has like he gets like super mad because obviously he doesn't have an answer for him.
Right.
He can't give him an answer because he's not out there, kicking in the doors and doing the work. He just expects it to get done, but he doesn't know what it requires.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So like, I think War Machine's a really good example of you just have, you have brass that really, some do and some don't. Luckily, the leaders I had were super cool and they all have prior cool guy
Yeah.
little um, experiences. But, a lot of the conventional side, I believe, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll give a shout out to the second. I think it's the second captain that came in of an ODA that I was on. Phil Cornerchuck. Good old Captain Cornerchuck. He was from Canada, and I think he was enlisted up there, or he was he was the most relaxed officer that I ever had the pleasure of serving with.
yeah.
He knew his place within the ODA and what his responsibilities were,
Yeah.
and then I think also he was just like a chill dude. I think we had some common interests, and he wasn't all uppity about his rank. And so that was the funnest, or that was the best time I had serving with an officer, as long as I was on the team with him. So
All right,
so,
all right,
all right.
all right. Nice, man. But yeah, dude, I agree with you. The war machine and having officers that like kind of know where they stand is probably the best blessing you can get as an enlisted guy. That's why I liked Ranger Regiment so much, because like the officers came in, they were studs. They were absolute studs.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there are some that are like you're studs, but you're hard to work with because you're, the ego is a big thing. But
Yeah.
I have to, the officer world, like we talk shit about it, but like it is stressful. Like if you think your team leader is putting pressure on you as a private to perform, like no, the commander is putting pressure on those platoon leaders to perform. Like they talk to each other way harsher than anybody I've ever seen. Like
Yeah.
that's a rough life. And like they're all PT studs, they're all expected to be in shape, to be professional, to be gentlemen, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But like it's a lot of pressure. But
Hey, Cameron,
compared to yeah.
let me ask you a question. This is like, I wanted to talk about this. I just wanted to throw this out there because it's something that I don't think you and I can like fully answer, because who the heck knows? But here we are. We're filming this in 2024. Okay, early
Yeah.
2024. And I got the question at the end of the format if you want to look at it. But we are, as of right now, we're not anywhere majorly, right? We're not in Afghanistan
Yeah.
anymore. We're not in Iraq anymore. I'm sure we're around. There's little, I'm sure SF's still doing their relationship to style deployments to different countries around the world to maintain our relationships. I know that's what my guys would be doing, trying to maintain that readiness. I'm sure Rangers are doing the same kind of things. But
Yep.
what do you think warfare is going to look like for America specifically in the future? Do you have any predictions, any thoughts
Predictions.
on that? Maybe not predictions.
Let me consult my glowing orb over here.
Your magic 8 ball.
Yeah. It's a great question, man. And I think it is like the question on everyone's mind.
Yeah.
I by no means am like a war specialist. I just am a guy that served, did his time, got out, and can't get over it.
Yep.
But I think there's a lot of things that are going to be changing about warfare because we have the technology side. I'm a firm believer that the military nowadays are stronger, faster, and smarter than us, than our days. Like they need
even your days, even just a few
even
years
my days.
ago.
I think
Oh,
I
okay.
think the Rangers nowadays are way smarter and stronger than I was.
Hey.
So and I'm glad. I'm so glad. I'm not like one of those salty guys that was like, my day was harder and I was tougher. It's like, no, I want you to be way smarter, tougher, and because you're gonna have harder wars to fight.
Yeah.
Because I think like the implications that come with incorporating technology, new equipments to understand, to combat other technology. Like, did you ever use drones?
Nope.
Like handheld drone? Like that's a thing. Like they're
Nope.
doing that now. Like they have
Yeah.
drones within platoons, and they have all these different technologies. Like you didn't have the ATAC, right? With the
Nope.
phones mounted on the chest. Like that's
Nope.
standard. That's
Blue Force
standard now
Tracker,
for a
baby.
regiment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like Blue Force Tracker, that you need to carry that in a truck.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
now
man.
you essentially have that on your chest.
Yeah.
And like, so we're getting more advanced, but that technology requires not just one person to know how to use it, but it requires everybody to know how to use it.
Yeah. That's a good
Uh,
point.
yeah. So like, they're gonna have to be smarter. They're gonna have to be stronger because they're, obviously they're getting equipment to assist them, but it's all technical based. Plus, the physical demands of war aren't going to change. When I say they're going to be stronger, it's just because the discoveries of science and I know when I was in, we had like physical therapists and all these guys and training and
Yeah.
coaches, and you didn't have that.
No.
And
No,
like,
man.
see, so that's like, if I had that now, what do they have now?
Yeah.
Almost 5-6 years. Yeah, 6 years later, like I'm sure they have way more, and it's more involved. So they're going to be stronger. They're going to be healthier. They're going to be smarter.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be more of a technology and a data war. But you're always going to need boots on the ground. That is not going to change. Like, even if
Yeah.
you find these guys, somebody's going to have to get them.
Yeah. The last 100 meters belongs to the infantry.
Exactly. So I
Yep.
don't think that's ever going to change. Plus, we're living in 2024 and we look at Russia and Ukraine, like you mentioned in the beginning. Like they're fighting in trenches,
Yeah.
you know? Like we
Yeah.
didn't do that since World War One. So war is going to advance and also regress at the same time.
Yeah.
So we're going to see a lot of these things that they did back in the day. But yeah, no, the world is a very unpredictable place just because nobody, I mean, obviously for Israel and Palestine have been fighting for a millennia since their
Right.
existence.
Yeah. Middle
So,
East is always going to be the Middle East.
yeah,
Yeah, I
and
think.
as far as America's involvement, I think we're really close, but I'm not like a crazy prepper. I think we're gonna have little sporadic events that are gonna unfold. But as far as like full fledged World War III, I'm looking at you, Iran. I got your fucking number. Uh, yeah. I don't know. It's a good question. A lot of people are focused on China. We have a lot of Houthi terrorist group involvement with Iran backed proxy cells in the Middle
Yeah.
East and Syria and Iraq. So
Yep.
like I said, there's little conflicts every now and then. I don't see like the U.S. mobilizing in force for one specific place, anytime soon. But I could I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a pretty well-rounded answer, man. I appreciate that. I kind of my short version is I basically agree with what you're talking about because America, by virtue of our size, location, our economic, I think being connected economically, I don't think it behooves any other country, any large power, to attack us directly. I think
yeah,
it's going to be, I think World War III, maybe you could even say World War III is being fought right now. It's being fought technologically, economically, and culturally,
yeah,
right? America, I don't think America is ever going to get invaded by a massive army, kind of Red
yeah,
Dawn style. I think if America is being attacked, it's going to be attacked culturally, economically, scientifically, psychologically, technologically,
yeah,
all that kind of stuff. And like you say, we may commit troops to some degree or another in certain areas. I think more so now we're kind of in supporting. We're back to the Cold War essentially, where these poor countries are going to be basically our proxies for other superpowers that are trying to influence them. But we're
yeah,
trying to influence them, so we're going to support these guys, and they're going
yeah.
to
It's
support
turf.
those guys.
It's a turf war.
Yeah, turf war on a global
Yeah.
scale. I'd rather hear both
Yeah,
sides of the
exactly. Yeah.
table.
I mean, if we were to final thought on that one. If we were to be attacked, like it wouldn't be full scale invasion, like you said. I think it would be like smaller attacks within domestically, because like the border crisis right now is
Right.
it's
Yeah.
so
You got
bad.
an inordinately
Oh
large
my
amount of
god.
Chinese
Military
military
age
age males
males
coming
just
across the
entering the
border.
country.
Interesting
That's
that should
super
happen.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, well, that's really scary to think about. Um, that like that's a big issue because like if you can't get into our systems, our technological systems from overseas, you can if you can get the Wi-Fi connection, I'm sure you can do a lot.
Yeah.
So having that open border right now and not doing a thing about it is extremely concerning.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't want to say I'm excited to see what happens because I'm not at all. But I am prepared to see what happens.
Interesting times we live in, Cameron. Interesting
Interesting
times.
times indeed, Izzy. Now,
That's cool, man. By the way, before we jump into our game, which I have right here in front of me, I want to do a little self shout out. I did an episode of the Green Beret Chronicles with
yeah,
yeah, with Jay Dorleus, super cool dude, former Green Beret. He's got a podcast and a YouTube channel. If you want to go check it out, the Green Beret Chronicles. I got an episode on there. I did it while we were at SHOT Show before I got sick,
yeah,
but a lot of fun. I talk about my life, my time in selection, shift fire afterward, shift fire and gameology afterwards, my career as it's been since I left the army. So it kind of go through like a nice little biographical thing. It was good. Jay's a good dude, and he has a great vision for the podcast where he wants to focus on bringing the story of the Green Berets to the front line, to the popular culture, so that they can inspire the next generation of people who are thinking about maybe joining up as well.
nice, man. Yeah, I've seen a couple of his stuff pop up on my algorithm. Yeah,
Uh-oh.
yeah. So it's whatever you're doing is working. Yeah.
All right, cool, man. Okay, so now, Cameron, we have a game, and I'm very excited to bring it to you. Chris made this one up. It's called, it goes like this. Deployment, it can be very lengthy. in honor of that, a very special and an especially difficult game has been cooked up for you.
Great.
This game is called How Long Was the War? I'll give you the
Oh,
name of a
yes.
war and you tell me how long it lasted. He gave me a little bit of leeway, so I'm gonna give you a couple years on either side. If I feel like you made a good effort and got pretty close, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, watch him put the 100 Years' War in there because I know it didn't last 100 years. So, all right.
Well, it's only one way to find out. This is your warm up. So, how long did this war last? You got to give me a number of years that it lasted. The American Civil War.
Civil War. Oh,
American
man.
Civil War. Yeah.
American Civil War. Didn't it? It wasn't that long of a war. The official war. Oh, shit. Here we go. Now I'm just gonna fucking. I always say I love history, and then I think about dates, and I get cross-eyed. Didn't it last like? It didn't last that long. I think it lasted like 6 years. 6 years. Final answer.
I'm going to give it to you. It lasted 4 years. 4 years,
4
1
years.
month, and 2 weeks to be exact. But 4
Okay.
years, you got within a couple of years. I'll give it to you, man.
Okay. What was that? 18.
Ooh, brother. Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't have the actual dates. It just says.
It doesn't. Not on here, but obviously Johnny G could look it up for us.
Yeah, Johnny G. 1861 to 65.
There you go. I knew that 1865 was in there somewhere. So 1861 to 65. Okay, that was your warm up. This is your first official question. Here we go. The Vietnam War. At least America's involvement specifically.
Okay.
So think about all the Vietnam wars that are out, war movies that are out there. How long?
So I know the Vietnam was longer, but I think did we get there in 68? 68 or 69? 68. I know we got out. I think it was like 74 we got out. I think it was 6 years long. I'm going to say 68 to 74.
Ooh, Cam, and I cannot give this one to you because remember we were soldiers. Remember
was
Mel
that
Gibson?
earlier?
So that was 1955.
That's 55 to
75.
Okay, 20 something.
20 years. 20 years.
Wow. Okay. Why did I think? Okay.
I mean, because remember, I think the French were all up in there
first. They were there, yeah.
And then we started getting involved for whatever reason.
55 to 75. Wow, 20 years, huh?
Long time, man. Long time.
Long time. Wow. Okay.
It's funny, you watch 80s movies and you realize how many actors or people in the industry that got into the entertainment industry. You're like, oh, that guy's a Vietnam vet. That guy's a Vietnam vet.
Yeah, 20 years, man. That's crazy.
Long time.
Yeah.
Just like Afghanistan. So.
Yeah, literally think about 20 years from now, we're going to look back and Jiwat's going to be like, all right, Vietnam.
Right. Yeah.
They're going to be like, that lasted 20 years? Wow.
Right. Next one coming up, Cameron, the Iraq War.
Ooh, the Iraq War. That was very short. Like the invasion, the Iraqi war.
No. The war when we officially kind of say, hey, we're going major operations or something. From when to when?
Major operation. Oh, this is. I feel like I might be tricking myself because obviously we've been in, Iraq was part of the GWAP, but then we had the invasion of Iraq, which was 2003.
Okay.
Was it 2000 or was it 2006? See, I'm getting my dates backwards now because we had invasion of Iraq, we had invasion of Afghanistan, the first push in Afghanistan. Which one came first? I'm blanking. I think. I don't think it's that long. I think it's a year.
Are we thinking of the same war, the Iraq War?
The Iraq War?
Not thinking of the Persian Gulf War. We're not thinking.
Okay, see, that was the invasion of.
Not Jarhead. Yeah, Persian Gulf War is when Kuwait, Saddam Hussein, 91, 92.
Yeah, 91, 92. That was Desert Storm.
Yeah, this is post 9/11.
Post 9/11. So was this the 2006 one?
I think you might be thinking about it a little too hard.
I think I am thinking about it way too hard. I don't know. I'm just going to throw a number out there that's probably wrong. 3 years.
That is incorrect. You are right in that it is incorrect. It's 8 years, 2003 to 2011.
2003.
We invaded. I remember I was in Colorado hanging out with my buddy's place. We were snowed in. And so I couldn't go anywhere. So all we did was watch footage about the Iraq invasion in 2003. But
Yeah,
to
2003.
2011, that's when we kind of the major drawdown at least. And then ISIS came back, and then we had to support, them
Yeah,
again.
so like when did that war officially? Because like my platoon went to Iraq. I was in Ranger School when they went to Iraq, and I was like,
Right.
okay, when did this officially end? Pretty sure we still have troops in Iraq.
I think we do like advisory. We have small
Yeah.
bases, support,
Okay.
whatever. But
Huh.
yeah. Well, anyway, let's keep moving because you're not doing very well. World War I.
World War One was kind of lengthy. Okay, so I think it's 20s or 30s.
Think of recent movies that have come out.
Yeah, I am thinking of it, but I don't remember the dates on them. You kidding me?
Well, there's a movie that's literally a year.
1940. Yeah, I know. 1930. What is it called again? 19. I'm just 1917. Is it?
Okay.
Okay,
Let's start with that.
Okay, 1917. We have the troops fleeing. Germans invade. God, this is killing me. But that wasn't was 1917 the beginning of the war? No, it wasn't the begin. Was it the beginning? I'm just gonna say 10 years.
Okay, you're wrong. It was 4 years, 1914 to 1918. It was one of those, World War I was one of those things where they didn't think it was going to last very long. And then it ended up lasting years more after that.
Okay.
It was kind of a weird kind of thing, but yeah, by 1917, we were very well into the thick of it. And then I think 1918 was when it finally ended. I don't even know the circumstances surrounding it ending. Like what happened? Like, do we have a major defeat or do we have like a major victory against the Kaiser?
Do we have a treaty? Yeah, do we have a treaty?
Because I know
there was a treaty. I think there was a treaty.
Was it the Treaty of Versailles, or was that that was leading up to World War II? Because, or maybe it was Versailles Treaty. Anyway, because I think that World War
Armistice, the armistice of November 18th.
Yeah, because they got Armistice Day over there in the UK, right?
Maybe I don't know.
Because the events of World War II were seeded. The seeds were planted in the aftermath of World War I. Because I think there was a lot of resentment in Germany, and Hitler utilized that and kind of like, we're going to be a nation again, because they took away territory from Germany and they're like, we're going to get it back because that's our territory. Anyway,
then invasion of Poland.
Invasion of Poland. There you go. The Versailles Treaty, I think, was when he said peace in our time, and it was totally a lie. Hitler totally backstabbed him. He's like, no, I'm going to invade Poland. Anyway, let's move on.
I need to brush up on my history.
That's all right. I mean, years are hard to do, man. I'm not gonna ding you for this one. Nobody is blaming you, Cameron. Okay. War of 1812.
The War of 1812. Wonderful. This
How many years did it last?
The War of 1812. I'm assuming this is just 1 year because it is the War of 1812.
I mean,
I'm gonna get literal.
It's at least one.
The War of 1812. This was before the Civil War. I'm gonna say this was a 3-year war.
That is exactly right, Cameron. Good for you.
Yep.
Nice. 1812 to 1815, 2 years and 8 months to be exact. We rounded up for the sake of simplicity. All right, Cameron. Next one. You wanted it. You got it.
The 100 Years
War.
Was it? But the question is, Israel, was it shorter?
Did we round up or did we round down when we titled this war? Yep.
This was a fun fact. We've talked about it before, but
we have
a long time ago.
I don't even remember what we talked about because I'm looking at the answer and I'm like, that does not look familiar to me. So.
Really? For some reason, the number 114, like it was over 100. It was over 100 years.
That's like, well, I'll talk about it afterwards. My comment would give it away.
I'm just gonna say I'm second guessing myself, so I'm gonna say it lasted 92 years. So it wasn't like 100 years.
Ooh, I can't quite give it to you because it did last over 100 years. It was 116 years from 1337 to 1453. I was going to say, my comment was, that's 3 generations worth of people. Like, you could be born, live your life, and die, and your country is still at war. Nothing has changed. That's
Yeah,
pretty
and back
crazy.
then too. Back then it was like, what was it? The
Maybe it was
average
like
was
5
50?
generations. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, yeah. That's crazy. When did that happen? The 100 year? That was like in the 1700s, right?
No, 1337 to
Oh shit.
1453.
Yeah.
Oh, do we have muskets back then? Did we have?
The introduction of black powder was in the 1300s to Europe, so I think they did.
Okay. All right. All right. Last one, Cameron. Let's finish out this long slog of a game.
Yeah.
The French Revolution.
French
French
Revolution.
Revolution. How many years
Well,
did
didn't
that
that?
last?
So the French Revolution was French Revolution. That was that Napoleon was in the French Revolution.
No, I mean the Napoleonic Wars would be that's if we're going to characterize it like GWAT style, the Napoleonic Wars would be that. I think that was way before. I'm not looking at the answer, but I think that was way before because Napoleon, like that was still like royalty years, you know. And the French was like, we're gonna have, I guess, democracy now. I guess I don't know.
Oh really? Oh shit! See, I know nothing about France. 'Cause I don't
Apologies to all
care
our
about
French
them.
friends.
Yeah, all our French friends. I'm sorry.
French
I just
Mike, I'm sorry, I don't know your history.
yeah, I just don't care about it. Um, I'm gonna say that lasted 12 years.
I'm gonna give it to you, Cameron. It was 10 years.
10 years.
1789 to 1799. 10 years. The French Revolution.
Okay, I'll take
Long
it. I will.
revolution. Man.
It is. Yeah, they're revolting.
We got ours done in about 2-3 years. We
Yeah.
declared, then they came over, and it was kind of
Yeah.
it was
And
kind
then
of
with
cat and mouse for us
1776.
for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like 17, well, maybe it was longer than that. Now I have to look it up.
1776. Yeah,
Until when, though?
1776. American Revolution.
You
Yeah,
looking it up?
1765 to 1783.
Oh, okay. So it was a build up, all out war,
Yeah.
and then we finally turned the tide. Okay.
Explain. Almost in 1775, 1776, we kicked all the British pretty much out.
Yeah. Well, Cameron, that's it. That's the game. You didn't do
That was
very
a
well, but
hard
hopefully
game, yeah.
You learned a lot.
I got
Dude, when it
some
comes to
right.
numbers, it's hard, man.
Who cares about numbers? What are even numbers? I'm a letter guy. Okay,
Yeah, you
I
want,
prefer
you want
letters.
words, become a mathematician, okay?
Exactly.
You want numbers, whatever.
Yeah. Well, folks, I hope you did better on that game than I did, but I also hope you had a great time listening to Izzy and I talk about our deployment experiences and some pieces of pop culture that aligned with them. If you did, make sure you are subscribing to our YouTube channel. Also, if you're interested in more content from us, we have some exclusive content on our Patreon page. And we also have a merch store that you can check out if you want to rock some PCFM apparel or get some stickers to slap on your grandmother's forehead. Other than that, Izzy, you got anything?
Folks, let us know if I know we're coming to the end of it, nobody listens to these, but hey, you let us know if you want us to get back into video game reviews because I would like to, and I got a few ideas up my sleeve. So if you think that would be good, you just let us know. Leave a comment on the YouTube, on this episode's channel, send us a DM on Instagram, but I'm excited. I'm excited for the future of the channel. Good to see you.
Absolutely.
That being
All
said,
right. Cue music.